Hello, world civilization students. This will be, let's see, the second part for Mexico, and we'll get into it. So, on your note packet, as we finish up parties, and I think you guys got both, or all three of the different party definitions, but you also got that spectrum, of showing the different political parties and the demographics. Fancy way of saying who votes for what, right? Urban voters or rural voters or suburban voters or middle income voters, stuff like that. So I think you all got to see that and did that. So now in the next section we have the Zapatistas on the bottom. So there's two main sections you can write down here, or two main things under Zapatistas. The first is a southern state called Chiapas. That's Chiapas. A southern state called Chiapas was full of farmers and Amerindians. In 1994, the Zapatistas or Amerindians, and there's really two in the same. The Zapatistas are those who are Amerindians, specifically in Chiapas, and that was the group, and that's what they called themselves. The Zapatistas or Amerindians rose up in revolt in 94. Okay, 94. 3,000 armed farmers took over neighboring cities, burning police stations along the way. So in 94, these Zapatistas or Amerindians, they rose up in revolt and as they did this, and as they rose up in revolt, they burned police stations. They burned a lot of parts of the cities. They overtook the cities. The city councils were non-existent. They were in control, and that's what they did. So they did all this, and it was almost like a petulant child in an aisle at Lee's. If some kid's like, "I want candy," and the parent doesn't even respond to him, it's like the opposite of love isn't hate; it's apathy. And the Mexican government was like, "Meh, we don't care," and the Catholic Church who's there is like, "Come on, you gotta care! Like these people are burning police stations down and kidnapping people and doing all this naughty stuff. You gotta respond." And the Mexican government was like, "Nah, we don't really want to." And so you want to keep writing here in the first part. The Catholic Church had to take over to broker a peace, Broker, to broker, to manage it. The Catholic Church had to step in to make sure that peace was given. Now this peace, I'll put in quotes, is a little bit different because the Zapatistas to this day in Chiapas still say they control the area. So you go in there, you see big signs, you can look it up, and it says this area is no longer controlled by the Mexican federal government or Mexico City, but is controlled by the Zapatistas or the Zapatista National Liberation Front. That group controls it. The Catholic Church stepped in to make sure that they sort of were recognized, but the UN, etc., Mexican government doesn't really recognize it as its own autonomous entity. It's just so weird. You drive in there and it's not anarchy or Mad Max, but the Zapatistas still control it to this day. So, for 5,000 points, Kayla, I know you got this on the tip of your tongue. Why did they get so upset? It's all over. So this is the second thing you write down is, this was all in response to NAFTA. This was all in response to NAFTA. That's an acronym, N as in Nancy, AFTA, NAFTA. This is all in response to NAFTA. It's crazy because NAFTA, so Leo, what's NAFTA? NAFTA is the North American Free Trade Agreement. And hint on your assignment, the UNO exercise, you're going to want to know this. What is NAFTA? It means that Canada, U.S., and Mexico, now the U.S. has tried to tweak a couple things under the Trump administration, but it's still there. It's called free trade, where if you sell a product for X price in Mexico, it should be sold at the same price in the U.S. It's free trade. Now, the reason they're doing this is a couple different ways. They're trying to encourage trade across borders and not have tariffs, right? Where if the U.S. says, we only want you to buy U.S. goods, then they'd put a tariff or extra tax on anything coming from Mexico or from Canada. But we don't do that anymore. Since 94, NAFTA was created. So why in the world would this thing, which sounds good on paper, make a bunch of rural Amerindian subsistence farmers who they have a little bit of a bumper crop, They go out to the local market, they sell some of their corn, that's it. How would that make them so livid at the Mexican government for signing NAFTA? Well, Savannah, I think you're onto something. I know you're thinking it. They're so upset because can these small local farmers keep up with the production and cost cutting and the pricing of a Walmart? No. No, Walmart's a big employer in Mexico, yes. And that's partly because of NAFTA. They have businesses, etc. there, and it works. You can't keep up for the mass production of those companies for local farmers like that, particularly with produce, right? It's a basic idea, and it's such an odd thing that like there'd be these Zapatistas on horseback and pitchforks and torches in '94, which seems anachronistic or out of time, over a simple treaty, but it was. And they're still upset that Mexico signed it to this day. Now, both sides are a little bit upset. I won't test you on it, but anybody know, Blake, Caleb, anybody figure out, like, why would President Trump be so upset on NAFTA, right? Like, you have two parties here. You have certain Mexicans upset on NAFTA because they can't keep up with that type of production. Why would President Trump be upset with NAFTA? I already gave you a hint. It's Walmart. The idea is companies, Nike, Walmart, Adidas, whatever. Well, Adidas or Adidas isn't U.S. based, but any U.S. based company has the choice. All right, we're going to build a factory. We can build it in Brownsville, Texas, right on the border. It's a really a small town there on the border, and pay our employees minimum wage and all the different health and safety regulations that they pay. Or we can pay half of that for Mexican employees in Monterrey. What would they do? Obviously, Nike would say, we're going to build these factories, made in Mexico, Carrier air conditioners, stuff like that. They're going to move their production plants to northern Mexico, and U.S. citizens don't get the benefit of those jobs, right? So President Trump's been upset at it because of that. So that gives you an idea of trade. Still exists, so that's there. Okay, now on the next section, you're going to see, we're going to talk about people. So I believe on your paper you got people, international relations, and interest groups. We'll get to, now whatever order that is, we'll get to interest groups and international relations next time. But I want to talk about people. There's going to be a total of 3 things you're going to write down here with people. The first thing that you're going to write about for people is Mexico's voting habits are hesitant and tentative. Mexico's voting habits are hesitant and tentative, similar to Nigeria. Now for a couple points. Anybody know why Mexico's voting patterns are a little hesitant and tentative? Well, they rigged elections a lot. Even in 2012, when Peña Nieto came in power, even with him, the problem of that area is they vote and you go and see like shoe boxes, if you will, of like paper ballots. And you see, wait a second, there's 2 times the stack for Calderon, for instance. And he loses the precinct to Peña Nieto, who has half of the stack. That doesn't add up at all. And that's similar to like if my daughter were to, hand out Monopoly money and be like, okay, Dad, here's $10 for you and $100 for me. And $1 for you and $1,000 for me. Is that even? No. That's how these Mexican ballot stuffers were counting the votes. So if you're a voter, why would you go and vote if you know it's going to be rigged? They're a lover scorned. I joke about it with other years of like, previous to my lovely family and wife, I actually in college dated a girl who I thought, this is great. She lived in California. I went to go visit her. Turns out she was cheating on me with some dude. It was a heartbreaking experience. To make matters worse, I was so poor I couldn't afford a fly home ticket until my actual ticket that I had scheduled. So I had to hang out for a week with these slubs. It was pretty pathetic. At that time, I was like, I'm never going to date anybody. I'm never going to marry anybody. I'm going to go retreat to the hills and become a monk and start doing seances and stuff. And a couple years passed, and I finally met my wife, at that point, my girlfriend, and had a wonderful little child here named Natalie. So cute. Handing out that Monopoly money in a sketchy way.
That's because I always want to win.
And that's why the PRI always wants to win. That's exactly it. But I thought, I'm never going to marry. I'm never going to have somebody so cute like this as a kid.
No!
Never, because I was so lover scorned. But just like The voters in Mexico are getting their trust back in the electoral process. I too realize that I can love again. So if you're ever wondering or trying to remember how Mexico votes or doesn't vote, think of little Gordon Pierre's love life. That eventually they did find love, but now they're really hesitant. Okay, the second thing you're going to write down is, and we do have our helper here. I think she should be doing some work of her own too, but I think she's wanting just to see about this World Civ class.
Yeah.
The second thing you're going to write down here is, I want to be clear, urban workers tend to vote for, we alluded to this before, but this is something that, like, suburban voters, people who are living in suburbs like Hyde Park, North Logan type area, Smithfield, those types of voters in Mexico tend to vote for the PAN because they're business leaders and they want to keep the taxes, and they're doing well enough. They don't want government help. Rural voters, those who are living in southern Mexico, tend to vote for the PRI. Yes, the party that my daughter exemplifies. She, in wanting to win, they prey on the illiterate and farmers and stuff like that. Those rural voters. I wasn't clear. Urban voters, which are, think of Logan. I mean, we wouldn't really have urban in Cache Valley, but urban is Logan. Those urban voters tend to vote for the PRD, right? College-age kids, stuff like that. And for Obrador, who is the current president. He co-opted that movement, organized it, ran it better, and we'll see how that goes. He might be seen as a populist leader who gives the people what they want. We'll see how it goes. Okay, the third and final thing, which I know Natalie is excited about. She really, that's the whole reason she's here. Okay, she's been waiting all night for me to talk about this thing. Well, let me ask Natalie. Natalie, who do you think is the biggest employer in Mexico? Who gives the most jobs in Mexico? Who do you think?
The president?
What? You're more right than you think. Okay, the third thing you're going to write down is the Mexican bureaucracy is one of the biggest employers in Mexico. Okay? And we talk about bureaucracy. It's people who work for the president, all the different government officials who aren't elected but work for the government. That's one of their biggest employers. That's so sad. Okay, on one angle, that's probably bad because you don't want a lot of government employees. But the president and the government says we'll give government jobs for petroleum and oil and gas and stuff like that. And it's sort of sad because if that's the only job, but it's also sad too because it doesn't mean a healthy economy. So, Natalie, let me ask you this. The president's jobs, the jobs he gives out, where does he have the money to pay those people? Where does he get that money?
From the people?
In the form of? Think of the word you always think of talking about. Taxes. All right, this 8-year-old's knocking out of the park. I mean, I don't know who their parents are, but she's doing pretty well.
He's my daddy.
That's right. So taxes. So it's not very healthy because you're not getting new money into the economy. So you're getting it from the people to go back to the people. When ideally you'd have it from a company or whatever that you're getting money from. That's a better plan. So it's sad because the government's giving you the job and not like your own private company. And it's also sad because it's not a healthy economy. And thirdly, I guess it's super sad because it's not that many jobs. They don't even top out at 1 million jobs. In the U.S., we have 4 or 5 million people who are with the bureaucracy, which sounds like a lot, but we have a huge population. Mexico, they have 1 million maybe who work for their bureaucracy, and that's not a good sign. If that's one of the biggest employers, that means even Walmart can't touch them, right? And that means they just don't have a lot of a healthy economy there. So that's under people. We will get to the international relations. So a lot of people who are talking about immigration right now, that matters. And also interest groups. We'll get to that. Our last section on Wednesday. Friday is the UNO exercise that's due. That worksheet you can use outside resources and stuff. NAFTA, hint, might be important. Right, Natalie?
NAFTA.
Yep, she got it. Yep. Be aware of that and turn that in by 11:59 p.m. on Friday, okay? And that's like our last assignment, and we'll go from there. Okay, awesome. Thanks so much. Bye.